Welcome to the interview with James Sykes, President and CEO of Baseload Energy. I have a disclaimer. Nothing you see or hear in this video should be taken as investment advice. We are no financial advisors and this video is for entertaining purposes only. Mr. Sykes may also have made some forward-looking statements. Please be aware of this. The interviewer was not compensated for the recording, nor were the questions agreed upon. Please keep in mind that myself is a shareholder of Baseload Energy. And please do your own due diligence. The day of recording was May the 27th, 2025, and now enjoy the interview. Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I have a guest, the first guest in English, so I'm very pleased to have James Sykes with me. He's the CEO and Director and President of Baseload Energy. We on the channel have already a lot of videos made over with Baseload, not interviewing you, but speaking about this whole idea what you have, and so I'm very pleased that you are here. And I want to ask you, what is this unique perspective you have with Baseload Energy, this Athabasca 2.0 thesis?
Cornell, thank you very much for having me, and thanks for allowing me to be your first English-speaking interviewer.
Thanks. Yeah.
I am happy to be talking to your group, and I hope I don't make things too complicated for people. But I'm always open for follow-ups, and if individuals want to get in touch with me, we can do so. Baseload Energy is a uranium exploration company in northern Saskatchewan in Canada. We're in the Athabasca Basin area, which is reputably the world's largest high-grade uranium jurisdiction. Some of the highest grade uranium deposits in the world, like Cigar Lake and Carton River. So it's the place you want to go if you want to find uranium. Our approach, based on a lot of my experience, I've been exploring in the Athabasca since 2006, so basically 20 odd years. I've been part of a lot of big discoveries, most notably being NextGen's Arrow discovery. I was the chief geologist behind that one, but I'd also worked for Hathor Exploration on the Rough Rider deposit and helped define the model that showed the trend. And when we followed that trend, we discovered two more deposits. And then Rio Tinto took us out. I was also at Denison Mines before all of that and looked at some of the historic core that led to the Griffin discovery. So I've been around deposits. I've seen quite a bit throughout my career. I've gone all over the Athabasca Basin, from the northwest to the southeast and everywhere in between. And when the opportunity arose to launch Baseload, I was formulating a strategy in that, looking holistically at the Athabasca Basin. It's a big sand bowl, and that sand bowl has a problem that it retains water, and the water is the real issue. There's billions of pounds of uranium that have been defined and found all at the bottom of the sand bowl, but they can't pull it out of the ground because of the water issues. They have to be a certain tonnage and they have to be a certain grade in order to mine these things within the sandstone. So looking at the history of the Athabasca, it's quite noticeable that most of the mines throughout the Athabasca's history were all open pits with either without sandstone cover, so they just went right into the basement rock and started their open pit, or they had a little bit of sandstone cover, not enough that the water flow would be problematic. So that was the approach that we decided to take. We said, okay, we know the sandstone was a lot larger. The sandstone back when it originally formed was huge. Then throughout billions of years and glacial events, it got eroded and smaller. So that's its current base size. So we like the idea that if we just look along the periphery of this, we think that we can find a deposit similar to Arrow, similar to Millennium or Griffin, or all these 50 million pound, 200 million pound plus uranium deposits that don't have sandstone. They have sandstone above, but the mineralization is not associated with the sandstone. So if nature does its work and removes the sandstone, you can have these deposits close to surface. That's our strategy. That's our Athabasca 2.0. We're re-envisioning exploration in this lucrative area. And we think there are many deposits out there to be discovered. You just have to have the right project, the right structures, and the right mentality look for these. I think that's where we check all of the boxes.
And that was the reason why you stacked these areas outside of the Athabasca Basin in your four areas you have here. I came up with your company like in the end of 2020, and there was Shadow, your first where you said this is great, or maybe there could be something, and Shadow is never been talking about it, or you have never drilled it. What is the problem there?
Shadow, we love Shadow. We think it's got a lot of potential. It's, again, we staked it with our criteria. It was the first project we staked. But when we tried to launch our first exploration program, which was a ground geophysical survey, the Indigenous community within the area were not happy with us being there. Even though we had been consulting and everything seemed fine before that, they really, really were opposed to the idea of us going in there and doing ground gravity survey. So ever since then, that was 2021 back in February. So ever since then, they've been internally debating on whether to allow exploration or not. Right now, it's on the lines that no, they're not for it. But with everything going on in and around the basin, and they're proud supporters of NextGen and Arrow.
Okay.
So we do believe that in time, when they see how things come about, how things go from exploration into development, that they'll get a better appreciation. They'll have a better understanding of how the whole process works. We've never gone into it with the mining side of things. We're exploration, and we've demonstrated that our exploration approach is much more environmentally friendly. We have very small footprints. We don't affect the ground. One of the problems with Saskatchewan being so close to Alberta is a lot of people in Saskatchewan have probably worked in the tar sands and the oil sands in Alberta.
And that it's dirty.
And those are messes, and even drilling those, they've got these large footprints. And so when we say, oh, we're going to go drilling, a lot of people immediately think oil and gas. And they think, oh, you're going to be big and massive and destroy a lot of things. No, we're not. Okay. So we have to educate a lot of people with this, that our footprints are extremely small.
Okay.
Barely even noticeable. Because we do a lot of helicopter work, we're able to cut down the trees and we don't actually affect the bottom vegetation. We keep all of that intact, and the trees will regrow. They get burned every 20 years anyway. But so we're still in that education process. We're letting them get better educated through the whole NextGen process and the fission process, which is up there, or Paladin now, I guess.
That will help.
And then when the time is right, we will come back and continue our consultation with them and see how they feel about exploration after that. The other groups that we deal with, the other Indigenous groups that we deal with, we've got very good rapport with them. We've got exploration agreements signed with 2 different communities for our other projects. So we know that it's not a sticking point within the whole Athabasca. It's not a sticking point within Baseload. It's just for this one project in this one group.
Luckily, you had the Hook project stacked, and you found Accio. It was also 2021, or was it end of 21?
Yeah.
That's the main source you have, or the main was the main target the last years. How is this going? I think you wanted to make a resource estimate later this year, or already last year, but we had some problem. You had some problems. Will we see a resource estimate this year, and maybe also a PEA?
Good questions. I can't fully comment on either of those. Accio, we discovered that in September 2021. Near surface, high-grade uranium. Mineralization starts within 25 meters, 30 meters beneath the overburden, so it's easily accessible. And that has been our focus since discovery, because it's been shallow and we needed to obviously drill it off. Once you make a discovery, you have to define its extent. I think after last year's program, we did a really good job of defining its extents. there are still a few open areas that we need to investigate, such as the up-dip extension of Pod 7, where Pod 7 would hit that overburden contact. We really haven't done a lot of justice drilling in there. And that's actually very important to better define, because the shallower the mineralization, the more cost effective it is to pull that out of the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan, if this ever goes into a development strategy, is you want to define as much mineralization near surface as possible. So within the first 50 meters or within the first 75, 80 meters.
Mm-hmm.
If you can extract enough uranium within that depth, the theory that we have is that you could pay for your capital costs and your operating costs. And even by that point, you could still be operating at positive margins and have net revenue return.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's critical for us to still continue drilling Akio, especially that Pod 7.
Okay.
There are some other structures. So we've been drilling on east-west orientations. We've had drill holes kind of go different directions. Because the structure that we've seen has been north-south, coming in and out of the plain.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main structure. But from last year's drilling, what we're starting to realize now is that there are more than likely some cross structures that are following the same direction that we've been drilling.
Okay.
In order to hit these things, it's very difficult.
You have to change your direction.
Change our drill orientation and go this way to test to see if those work. Why is that important? Well, it's these things here that could be going this east-west direction that we haven't drilled for. They look like they could be high-grade veins. They look like they could be high-grade structures that control mineralization. If we could very easily be missing those because we've been drilling on 25-meter, 50-meter spacings. What we've seen at Akio is that mineralization, depending on the pod, sometimes is less than 25 meters. If you get something like Pod 1 or Pod 7, they're quite extensive. But these cross-cutting veins are more than likely narrower, but higher grade. And that's something that we haven't tested either.
If you have a PEA resource estimate, we as the investors were able to say how much it's worth your company. So if you take more time in order to drill it, the market will not recognize how much or how big this thing is. I think. Is this one of
I
the
definitely
questions?
appreciate those comments. Yes,
Yeah.
I see that exactly as well, which is why last year we were trying to find new pods. We were trying to grow it as much as we could. And to be honest, we found its limits.
Okay.
We found its strike limits. We found its depth limits. And so for the bulk of Akio is confined. But there are still certain areas that can add pounds that I think would be better for us to come out with a resource as best as possible with not even an inferred resource, but an indicated resource, which is why we've done a lot of tight space drilling. So we've got more confidence in our model.
Okay.
Which if we get into a mineral resource and a PEA, you want higher confidence, not something that's inferred, especially being so close to surface. Very important for that. But we want to come out with something that is, I'd like to say, capped and just not open-ended anymore, because we could sit there and we can continue drilling around Akio. We could try to incrementally grow things along strike or at depth, but that wouldn't add significant pounds, and that's where we do see wasted shareholder value by trying to do things like that. But this zone up at Pod 7 and these cross-cutting structures are things that could add pounds quicker, and especially the Pod 7 overburden contact mineralization. That is pretty significant material that we would need to know in order to better define a resource. Okay. So theoretically, yes, we can come out with a resource and we could put it out there without having those areas drilled, and then re-update the resource. But I don't think that really adds a lot of value. Okay. Personally, I think it's better if we came out with a resource that was complete.
Okay. And you have, I think, 5 Canadian million left to drill. Will you spend parts of this in order to drill this pot 7 in order to be able to make this resource estimate this year?
Yeah, we all in, company has about $8.5 million.
Okay.
Because we're in Canada, we've got that flow through expenditures. So if investors aren't familiar with that, it's a way that the investor gets tax breaks and tax deductions, and company has to spend those money in the ground. The company cannot use flow through dollars for capital purchases or administrative purposes. It all has to be spent on exploration. So our flow through commitment this year is at least $4 million, and then the rest is in hard dollars, working capital to keep the lights on in the company for a number of years. We have a very low burn rate, which is good. So with the $4 million in exploration dollars and flow through, it gives us about 7,000 meters. Our average at Hook is about $550 a meter, all in cost. That's helicopter assays, people, drilling, all that fun stuff, all in $550 a meter. We think we can even reduce those costs, but it gives us 7,000 meters. In the drill program that we are looking at and planning for this year, yes, we do have a return to Akio as a small part of that project. We do not want to go back to Akio for the entire of the drill program. Again, we think we've identified the point that we're at Akio where we have diminished returns. So it doesn't make sense to keep beating the drum on that.
No.
But there's still some drill holes that need to go into Akio to better define it. And these would be shallow holes. We're not talking deep holes. 100 meters maximum.
Okay.
We could pull that off very quickly and get that done and get that done quite rapidly and cost effectively. So that would be a small part of the planned summer program. Where it fits into the whole strategy, it's not the first place we would go back to, as the market has seemed to already have said that if we look at our share price as a proxy for investors or the investment community's belief in Akio, then they don't believe in Akio. It hasn't resonated well in the marketplace. So we need to find something new, and that's the big strategy for this year.
And you told us about this in several videos you published on the OR group. I've seen every one of them, and it's really interesting. So maybe we can switch to this. What is the plan? The plan is to find something, but is it something like a non-conformity deposit down there with high grade and everything near this harder rocks, or is it something like an Akio 2.0 or an, I don't know, maybe something like NextGen's Arrow or so, like maybe that I can get the head around this.
We never know what we're going to find.
Okay.
It's as simple as that. All we can do is we can do our best to make sure that we find something. And that's the trick of it. Like Akio would be amazing if it was just 10x the grade. It would have been a no-brainer. It would be significantly, not even 10x the grade, even 5x the grade would be fantastic.
Okay.
We would be comfortable finding an Akio 2.0. Absolutely.
Okay.
Our goal, though, and always has been, is to find something along the lines of Up Arrow or McArthur River or Cigar, something of massive scale and massive high grade, but closer to surface. That open pit idea is if you had Arrow or McArthur River that was an open pit, that would be the world's greatest mine. Not the uranium mine, it would be the world's greatest mine. The margins you would have on mineralization, that's such high grade mineralization that can be open pit extracted, would be phenomenal. It would be absolutely bonkers how ridiculously valued that deposit would be. That's what we're after, and that's what we've always been after.
This elephant.
So now with Akio actually provides us a model that we're starting to envision and expanding on. We started last year even. it's a hub and spoke model where Accio, as we have defined as an open pit already, we do think with all of our internal calculations, Accio would have positive net margins in any mining scenario.
Okay.
So Accio as a hub, and then we defined 2 areas last year that could be spokes. So satellite deposits. And the one area that we've been really promoting and highlighting, we call TT, or clay alteration, because of the massive clay alteration in the area. Everything that we're seeing in there, it's through the roof. It is beautiful looking alteration. The geochemistry is all pointing us to the idea that there's high grade mineralization, not just uranium mineralization.
Okay.
More specifically, it seems to be indicating that we're on this fluid path that has high grade mineralization.
Okay.
And that's what we want to find. We want to find that 10% material, that 20% material, that 50% material. If you can do that, then you add tonnage very quickly.
Yeah.
So if we can make another discovery, or 2 or 3 or however many we can do, then we can really build the Hook project into a jurisdiction, so that it's not a standalone deposit being Accio, but now you've got 2 or 3 deposits on it. Now it becomes a jurisdiction that looks far more favorable to a mining scenario, in that everything is interconnected within short distances.
So you can switch around the materials and the people and have one base for several mines. Yeah.
And that's how they've all worked in the past.
Okay.
That's Rabbit Lake, Collins Bay, Eagle Point. Number of different deposits that were all mined within the same jurisdiction. Sioux deposits and Caribou and Cigar Lake, they're all under the same jurisdiction. Key Lake and I guess MacArthur River, to the same degree, are all in the same jurisdiction. So Cluff Lake had 10 deposits, both open pit and underground, all within the same jurisdiction.
Okay.
So these deposits, it's quite possible to build a jurisdiction if you have the right project and you have multiple discoveries. Now that we do have 1 discovery, we're looking for discovery number 2.
Okay.
And if we can make discovery number 2 on this project, I think we will be a well-regarded company in the investment community.
So you are a takeover then, or is it more like let's see how you can mine it, or do you think then the big guys will come and take you out in some way?
That's forward-looking questions. Obviously, I don't have answers for those.
Okay.
But as it is, we would continue to march on the path as much as we can. We don't want to stay passive.
Okay.
We want to continue to be aggressive, not only in the exploration play, but if we do find a new discovery in this TT area and it's looking good, I'm hoping that we will have people knocking on our door.
Okay. And then you can decide and if you want.
We'll let the investors decide.
Yeah.
On the board.
Yeah. If Accio and this TT will be a mine one time, you would bring it to the Key Lake mill and make a toll milling situation out of it. Why? Because it's expensive to build a mine or a mill, I would say, or is it has it other reasons why you force this type of ideas?
Many reasons. Yeah, the cost is a big thing. The time to build a mill is also a big thing.
Okay.
And then permitting is also very timely. If you can reduce the requirement for a mill, you can reduce a lot of your permitting time. You can reduce a lot of your environmental footprint and cleanup costs in the end. Because decommissioning a mill is probably quite difficult and costly.
Okay.
The other issue that I'm familiar with from working at Rough Rider, whether this is still true or not, but even back in the day when we were looking at Rough Rider, the idea was to build a standalone mill for there. But the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission had come in and said, "You've got mills in the area. We won't permit another mill in this area." So because it's radioactive materials, it does have that stigma.
Okay.
It's not like gold, where you just put a mill wherever the heck you want.
Mm.
It's radioactive, and uranium is easily leachable. And so if there could be potential for environmental contaminations. Fortunately enough, in the Athabasca, everything was done right with Cameco and Orano. They've done amazing jobs at the environmental cleanups and not cleanups, but prohibiting any disasters to even occur or any type of issues like that. So we know that it can be done right. But again, to build a mill and even taking something like Akio, it just makes more sense to be able to toll mill it. Far more, it's much quicker, more cost effective. We don't know if Key Lake would ever take our material or allow for toll milling, but that's the idea that we like to plan around. Is that scenario where we can toll mill through Key Lake. We think that Key Lake they're not at full capacity. They've been operating at 60 to 80% capacity for a very long time. Will they reach 100% capacity, which is 25 million pounds? Honestly, don't know. If they don't, then there's additional capacity, and that's where we think there's an open opportunity for Akio mineralization to go fill in remaining capacity at the mill. So to us, it makes sense.
Yeah. So the thing is, you want to get as soon as possible the material out of the ground, because the situation in the market is there's a structural deficit. We know this all, and as fast you get the material out of the ground and get it through this mill, you can create cash flow. Huh? So it's all about getting cash flow and not hitting the best deposit ever, or it would be nice to have, but it's not the real way you want it to advance baseload. Or am I right with this?
Oh, we've got a number of different ideas. But yes, one of those ideas being that Akio being as shallow as it is, and with the ability to extract mineralization quickly, yes, we think that it could be a very small operation. It can be done quickly. It can provide significant revenue for the company, even to the point where I would like to believe that we could pay dividends to shareholders. That's been my goal even with baseload, is finding these open pits, being able to put them into production. You pay dividends to investors. That's the biggest win anybody could ask for, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I would love to see that happen. I think it'd be absolutely wonderful. Again, mining Akio would not be a significantly time-consuming operation. We think that you could extract a couple million pounds, a couple million to a few million pounds every few years. It can be done very quickly, and you can generate a lot of revenue very quickly as well. And that's what we like about the idea.
Okay. And that brings me to the question how your share structure is. I know you have a lot of warrants and options outstanding, but they are expiring a lot of this year. Am I right?
Yes, so, especially the warrants. We've got about 22 million warrants. They're all out of price right now. I think about 18 million of those expire this year.
Okay.
Our average strike price for the warrants is about 62 cents. And then we've got about 15 million options. The average strike price for those, I do believe, is about 76 cents. And a few million of those will be expiring within the next month or so.
Okay. Yeah, because raising new money in order to bring it on would dilute the shareholders, but also these options and warrants. But with a price of 60-70 cents Canadian cents, it would be fine to dilute. Or am I wrong here?
Well, if we could bring in the warrant money, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. But at those, we would need to get the share price much higher, because I don't think a warrant holder would pay for the warrants when they can just go onto the open market
and get it cheaper. Yes,
it's six times the amount of shares with the same amount of cash. So we have to get that share price moving a lot higher.
Yeah.
But that's where the summer's exploration program comes in. 7,000 meters, $4 million behind us for exploration. TT area looking absolutely fantastic for a new discovery. Even the Tab area, which we haven't really highlighted too much, that area looks absolutely significant for a new discovery as well. We think that a new discovery will get our share price moving again. Yeah. Maybe those warrants will be in the money by the time exploration is done.
Okay, would be great. So you are planning for 2 to 3 months exploration and different areas. So some meters into this Akio Pod 7 procedure, and then this Tab and TT. So what is the time frame, which is the priority number one, and how will this go along the next months for Baseload and the information for us shareholders?
TT is priority number one.
Okay.
Over everything else. That's where we are going first. And so what we've done internally, and we'll have a news release out hopefully next week with our exploration plans. But what we plan to do is about 8 drill holes in TT in 3 different areas, continuing to test the down dip extension of this clay alteration that seems to get better with depth. We want to figure out what the cross section looks like and if we can tag mineralization off this cross section, because I think we're close. From what I've seen with these massive clay alteration halos around deposits, is that they're typically anywhere from 0 to 300 meters away from mineralization. Right now, we've defined a strike length of about 150 to 200 meters. So with the additional drilling we will do, we'll infill down to about 300 to 350 meters along this dip extent. So if we're by that point, that's when I think that we should be hitting mineralization within there, if it's there.
If it's there.
This is geology. It's exploration. You never know what Mother Nature has done. There could be major curveballs in there that we may not find anything, and that's the reality of the situation. We don't think so based on all the chemistry and based on the drilling we have done. We think there is something viable there, but it's nature in the end, and it's a high risk. But I said, we defined 8 drill holes in the area, in which we think we'll have a very strong possibility to define mineralization if it is there. If we don't hit anything in TT, then we will move off to a new area. If we hit a TT, we will continue drilling it, of course, and we will basically we'll probably end the drill program at TT. If we don't hit a TT, then we'll go to Tab, which is northeast of Akio. We had one drill hole in there that hit a massive radioactive pegmatite, which is very encouraging. But within that pegmatite, just above it, are radioactive and uranium-bearing structures. That's the exciting part of this whole thing. It's another one of these areas that has pathfinders. The oxidized fluid system pathfinder is right there. It's right in front of our face, and we've only got one hole into the area of a strike length that's about a kilometer to a kilometer and a half that we haven't tested. So we've got other drill holes within the area to further test that, and again try to define more mineralization in that area. And then we would go to Akio. If we strike out a Tab, then we would go to Akio. If we hit a Tab, then we obviously would continue going there. Then we would go to Akio and complete that Pod 7 mineralization. If after that, and we still have meters to burn, then we've got other target areas that we would test as well. But we do want to finish off with Akio. If we're not hitting a TT or Tab, we want to finish off with Akio so that we do have mineralization from the drill program and new mineralization. If we're hitting at TT, we drill at TT. We're hitting a Tab, we drill a Tab. Simple as that. But our priority this year is really to make that new discovery. We tried last year, and I think we've done very well to get us to where we are. We were strategic enough to have cash in the bank to be able to fund this year's exploration. And we we didn't burn all of our budget last year on Accio. We did prioritize a lot of exploration drilling specifically for this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're well capitalized. I think we're in a very good situation to make a new discovery.
Okay.
Share price is basically at all-time lows.
Yeah.
So this is a very unique entry point for investors who have never got into baseload.
Yeah.
Or if they're current investors and want to average down, I think this is a very unique point as we're weeks away from starting a drill program.
Okay. That was what I wanted to ask. You will start in June with your drill program? Yes.
Yeah. If we leave it until July, we're already under the gun. We're behind schedule.
Okay.
If we leave it to July.
Mm-hmm.
So mid-June is when we're looking to have the drill starting.
Okay. We're
still debating if we go 1 or 2 drills.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that we'll have firmed up hopefully within the next week or so.
Mm-hmm.
But we're aiming for mid-June to start the drill turning at TT area.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very close to seeing this all come through. We're weeks away.
Mm-hmm. The next question follow up to this share structure is that you have a lot of retail investors, like 90%, and only a few key investors like this QC Copper, was it called once, and you and the crew also has only 2%. Why, if you are so satisfied with it and think that it's so undervalued, why don't you have more shares? Or is there some problematics with this?
No problematics. Just none of us are extremely wealthy individuals.
Okay.
So it's not like we can take 10 grand every month and throw it in, or 100 grand here and there.
Okay.
I'm certainly not one of those people. But I from my perspective, there's a few things.
Mm-hmm.
Because we made Accio discovery very quickly, we needed cash.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lot of flow-through placements with a lot of brokers, and they were able to bring in the cash that we needed to drill.
Mm-hmm.
And we diluted diluted our internal shareholders.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a necessary thing to do in order to be able to continue drilling Accio, which is very exciting. And we did that for a number of years. So we had to dilute ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
There was no real way around it. From the inside perspective as well, because we've been so active, we've all been in blackout almost the entire time. We've always been privy to new information, whether it's radioactivity results, which we can use as a proxy for uranium. So as soon as we know we've got radioactivity, we're in blackout. Or as soon as we start drilling, we're in blackout. And then we have to wait for assays to come out. So if you look at a year like last year, 2024, we were drilling from February all the way through September, waiting on assays the entire time too. And same with 2022 was a very long year as well, from January all the way through September again. We've had a lot of years of just nonstop exploration, drilling, and waiting on results. So we haven't the board and executives, we have not had a lot of time where we're not in a blackout period. It's been difficult for us to be able to buy our own shares.
Okay. But now you have the results out for this Accio drilling. You would be able to buy some shares.
That's the goal. That's the goal with the weeks that we have between when we start drilling and getting this last news release out that provides the exploration plans. Then everybody, all of the investment community, the public will have as much information as we have. And at that point, that's when our blackout can be lifted. Okay. Whether it's only going to be for a week, 2 weeks, that's better than nothing. And I'm already strategizing for purchase in the open market.
Okay, cool to hear that, because it's helpful when the CEO and the person who is involved is also
Oh, I've got a lot of faith in TT.
Okay.
I see the way this alteration is played out. I see the chemical signatures and everything that I see there ranks it as probably the best non-mineralized drill hole I've seen in my career. it's looking at that core. I've often wondered, like, why aren't we seeing mineralization yet? And it's just simply because I think it's at depth and we just haven't drilled it. But I have no reason not to believe that we will not hit mineralization, which is why I want to support I want to support this drill program. I want to support Baseload, and I want to benefit from it.
Yeah.
So before we get drilling, I would love to put a placement into the open market and just ride this exciting exploration plan.
We hope so too. I've also loaded up the truck for in order to benefit from this anomaly. I think it's the market sentiment
Hopefully
was.
It's a 1-ton truck and not a half-ton.
The problem is that the sentiment was down the last year. No? Accio was not in the minds of the people. Oh, you're a simple explorer hitting nothing. So like, that's the thing. I think the public thinks, and this is the asymmetry, the chance for us investors. If you hit, or in the end, if you don't hit, but bring Accio into this resource estimates and PEA phase, that the market is seeing what's really behind Baseload, and that's my hope, and I don't think that we'll stay at this valuations any longer after the summer. So this is my take on it. I don't know what's your take on it. Maybe you can say some of that.
I'm of the same opinion. A new discovery will be the most significant return for investors, which is why we're really pushing for it.
Okay.
If we get a mineral resource for Accio, I know that there will be a lot of people who will appreciate it. I have a feeling that the general market overall would probably not. But I think they've already spoken. I think they've already spoken that they think it's too low grade and too small. Again, we see things differently. So with the discovery potential, that's number one. That's the biggest bet on return possible. To add further value to the company, yes, I personally believe that a mineral resource for Accio will add a lot of value to the company, especially if it is a deposit that has high positive margins. Absolutely, that's with the grades we're looking at, and to one of your comments recently that investors say we have nothing. That's very true. I've heard that comment many times. But if you look at the last 3 years of drilling, we have consistently ranked. Our best drill hole from each drill program has consistently ranked amongst the top 5 to 10 drill holes in the global uranium space for best drill holes. That's not a nothing deposit. That's not a nothing discovery. That's a top 10 that is being drilled off year after year in the global space. This is something in the Athabasca Basin. It is close to infrastructure.
Yeah.
It is open pittable. That's the beauty of Accio. It has everything working for it.
And it comes. The mineability is there, and you can bring it into production likely very fast in the next, let's say, 3 years.
I don't know how long it would take with our new government, if they're true to their word about fast tracking things. This is the time to really be investigating things like that. So we've got a lot on our plate, but right now the main focus is exploration and discovery.
Okay. Yeah. I hope you find something, and I would love to see you again on this channel, and maybe you can elaborate on a great find and a great hit, and hopefully the market will appreciate it too, and we'll sit here and smile the whole video. That would be what I'm looking for. Yeah. Okay.
I would love to follow up for sure, especially if you receive a lot of questions from your investors. Great. But I think we should do a follow up at your convenience whenever you think is ready.
Yeah.
If we're hitting mineralization right off the bat, I would be happy to come online and talk about it some more. If we're not hitting anything, and I'd be happy to come online and
talk about strategy
and our support at the end of the drill program.
Yeah. And talk about strategies, how we're going forward. See you.
Thank you, Cornell.
Thanks for watching the interview. If you enjoyed it, please press the like button and subscribe to the channel. I'll do a follow-up video on baseload energy in English in the next days. And I also will have James Sykes back on this channel in, let's see, in some weeks, hopefully with great results. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them down in the comment section. I'll try my best to give you an answer, or I will ask James Sykes to answer it if I can't. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned and I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.